Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome. Well, good start. Welcome to the Plant Based Morning Show presented by Compliment. It's a Friday, January 20th, and Fridays are usually pretty good shows. Friday's usually a pretty good day, just in general, speaking about one day versus another. I know I've been pushing the Thursdays recently, uh, and I must admit that I'm a little bit, I don't feel quite as happy on Friday as I do on Thursday because I've already used up some of my weekend. I've used up some of the time when you're in a great mood. Okay, here's Doug. Speaking of great moods,
It's Friday,
singing
Friday.
my
Gotta
song.
get down on
I
Friday.
like it. Here's the real one if you want. Just so everyone remembers, the sound machine is not gone. I need a sponsor for that sound machine, like the I don't know, the Spotify something cool beat sound machine or something like that.
Yeah, 7-Eleven
Like,
needs to get on that.
yeah,
Been giving 7-Eleven a lot of promo here, so
you're right. How about the 7-Eleven sounds great sound machine or something like that?
there you go. Perfect.
Good.
Happy Friday, Matt.
Yes, happy Friday to you. You know what? I was just saying a little spiel at the beginning here, defending this idea that Thursdays are better than Fridays because you haven't used up, and now I've already feel like I've wasted some of my weekend already. So, but you know what? It's not true. I'm in a much better mood today than yesterday. Friday's just better than Thursdays. As much as we pretend, just like we pretend non-alcoholic beer is just as good as the real thing. We can pretend Thursdays are just as good as Friday, but once you have a taste of the real thing, you remember that it's just there's no topping.
That's right. Matt, I don't know what you would do for those first 20 seconds if you couldn't talk about the day of the week.
Oh, I know. No, there's nothing to talk about because it's time when there's like 3 people here and it's gradually
Yeah.
increasing to 5 or 10.
Kind of wasted time. Yeah.
It's total waste of time. We need really a better system. If you had like Twitter Space where there's no video, you just put on music and you just let people come in, filter in, listening to some music, and then in 5 minutes in, you start the show. I guess we could do that with like a little sign up over the camera or something. But I don't know. I think Instagram Live's got to catch up a little bit with the functionality here. I'm ready to migrate platforms.
Oh boy. Oh, that's that's a big talk here. We got all of our friends here today. Steven says, I do a little dance every time the Friday song is played. Dale Steven says, I always like Thursday because it means one more day.
Yeah, right. That's the idea.
Jody Shuck asked where my unicycle and ukulele are. I saw that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you follow us on Instagram. I shared a little story.
Plant-based Morning Show is the channel you would have to follow to get that.
That's right. Of this little, or not this guy who was playing the ukulele while on a unicycle and hula hooping all at the same time, and it made me laugh because it seemed like something I would try to do on an intro to do an episode if I could do any of those things. So, yeah, I still got to work on it. It's in the works.
That reminded me of unicycle guy in college, where there's always the guy out there on the quad or near the dining hall riding his unicycle around, similar to guitar guy who would be out there playing his guitar.
Sure.
We didn't have hula hoop guy. That wasn't really a craze yet. I mean, I guess it came back, but
we had a lot of slackline guys.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess my younger self, I always thought those guys, they're just craving attention. They're just doing this stuff. Do you really need a unicycle to ride around in circles in front of the dining hall? Like, are you accomplishing anything by doing that other than people say, "Oh, look, that guy's on a unicycle"? But you know what? Everybody, do your own thing now. I'm okay.
Yeah. If it brings you joy, do it.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Well, I feel that way about hula hooping, but I don't know about unicycling.
No,
anyway,
man, I bet that unicycle guy is making waves in the world right now just because he went out and
he's making that video now that got on our Instagram story.
That's right. That was probably the unicycle guy from your school.
Yeah. Steven comments on my red shirt today, thinking that I'm now a Liverpool supporter. No, wrong. This is actually Mainz, which is a German team, where we went in whatever that was, November. But more importantly, it's a red shirt on Friday. Remember I was saying I was going to do a Tiger Woods thing, wear like my Friday shirt, bring all the energy like Tiger Woods would wear red on Sunday. So I stopped wearing that shirt, but now I have this red one instead. So maybe I'll start doing that. We'll see. So anything to get the energy, keep the energy going here.
We got to bring the energy, boys. We got to bring the energy.
Yes, we do. All right. Well,
I don't know why I spoke to us in the plural, but yeah. Anyway.
Oh, you're talking to us. Okay, I think you're talking to the audience and just calling them boys.
No, us.
Okay, right. Yeah, we do. All right, so I had this is a fan favorite dish, or at least a Doug favorite dish. I think it's a fan favorite dish. I had broccolini last night on
Nice.
top of pasta with what turned out to be a creamy cashew sauce, creamier than I kind of expected. I should have known when it said cashew sauce that it was going to be creamy. I was kind of in the mood. We were in the mood for broccolini over pasta with olive oil. We talked about olive oil on the show yesterday, and we got a little bit more today. Follow up.
Yeah.
White wine. I'm very much into the white wine, olive oil, crushed red pepper, garlic sauce. That it's not really a sauce; it's just sort of a light coating on pastas. But man, you put white wine in a dish that you're sautéing, I guess. It just adds a goodness of flavor like no other. So I was in the mood for that with some broccolini, but then found this other recipe instead, and we made that. It was still very good, but it was kind of a creamy, cheesy version. And the only complaint I had is that it sort of hid the broccolini. You could have used regular broccoli, wouldn't have really noticed any difference. And that was my only complaint. But it's a good one. And speaking of recipes, I know we talk about them now and then everyone inevitably says, post it on Instagram. I always say I will, and then we inevitably don't because I don't know how to post a recipe on Instagram. I can put a whole URL on Instagram, but you can't click it.
Right.
I don't really want to get into the link in bio thing. So what I want to do, we've been talking about this for a while, is starting some kind of newsletter that goes with this show that you can sign up for to get the show's resources, maybe get weather report bullets in your email, something like that. But we figure we put that kind of content into there so then we can say, hey, join the newsletter. It'll be in it tomorrow. You'll get the recipe with a link to the recipe. So I'm going to do something like that. I'd love to hear if people would actually do that, would want it. But I think it'd be a good way to kind of expand our footprint here.
I think it's a great idea. I love it. I think it would also encourage us to actually follow through with when we're saying we're gonna send out links. So,
right. That would always be
I think I've been saying that I was gonna post several like the chili recipe and maybe some enchilada recipes, but
that's right. Your white chili, right?
Yep. My green chili.
Green chili. Yes. That's right. Yeah, I need that.
What else is up?
Not all that much. My mom, I noticed, is here. She's checking in from the hospital, which I say not to get attention like unicycle guy would probably do. I just say that because she's there. She was having some chest pains. I don't know if she wants me saying this on the show. Perhaps not. But a nice little shout out to her. She has had this sort of thing before. She's actually a long time ago before she went plant-based, or actually the prompt for her plant-based transition was a huge cardiac scare, 99% blockage thing. Anyway, but I am so proud that she eats the way she does and she exercises, so that when she says she's going to the hospital for chest pains, I tend to think she's probably just kind of, I don't know. I believe she's having chest pains. I don't have too much fear about her health because I think she does a really good job. So I think it's easy to get scared and you get worked up and then you think this is bad and then maybe it leads to even worse chest pains. But anyway, I am. It sounds like a somber note. It's not. I just noticed that how confident I felt because of all this. So shouting it out, and she does listen to the show. So just figured I'd.
Well, I hope it is all good news, and I'm sure it will be. But,
well, it appears to be. It appears that, and it was last night, and she seems to be in the clear.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear.
Yes, definitely.
A lot of people sending her good vibes. I don't know if she's reading comments.
That's very nice. Thank you. Good. That's really not. I was not trying to get people to give me attention, but thank you for the positive vibes for her. All right. What else, Doug? Anything else for you? Any special dinners for you? Any progress on the pull up? No, I'm not gonna ask about pull up bar. You tell me that when you're ready to have progress there. I'll be ready to hear it. Anything? Any ideas? People are saying they like the newsletter idea, which I like to hear. Thank you for that affirmation.
I went out with my friends last night for dinner, so nothing super fun to report there, except that I did have a post dinner. We went out for one more drink, got a Natty Boh, which I know is your old territory.
That's right. Baltimore.
Good old Baltimore beer that is not very good, but is definitely a Baltimore beer.
Yeah, it's a lawnmower beer.
It's a good lawnmower beer. There you go.
Yeah. All right, good for you. You know what? Speaking of beer, we yesterday said we kind of made fun of ourselves, saying that we really had dropped the ball with this damp January habit of ours. It not enough structure. suffers from some of the same problems that we said the flexitarian diet suffers from. And I just saw a Veg News article on the flexitarian diet today, and I had it in the show plan. Ended up not talking about it because, or not planning for it, because it's just not enough new, interesting. We've talked about what it is, but they point out there that 1 in 4 people globally, according to some surveys, would identify themselves as flexitarian, and that actually, to me, highlights the fundamental problem with flexitarian. It's the same problem as you and I have with this dry January. You can call yourself that.
Right.
But there's so little structure around what it means to be that if you're not actually getting the book and following it, which I'm sure 0.1% of those people are. You just say, well, I'm somebody who kind of thinks now and then about eating a plant-based food, and I'm going to call myself flexitarian.
I like vegetables. I eat a salad.
Yeah, exactly. So that is that's the problem with the flexitarian diet. I still predict it to be diet of the year along with Mediterranean diet, but that's the problem. But they needed some more structure somehow, or a name that implies something. How about like an 80-20 Aryan, or like I don't know, a 90-tarian, something that just says a number that means you have to at least eat this much plants.
Yeah,
I'll keep working on that.
Maybe we should start something called 80-20 plants.
Yeah, right. Maybe.
All right. What's going on in the weather today? The non-weather weather.
I'm glad you asked, Doug. I've got some music queued up. I did not work in your thing, but let's see if I can get this done before the sound is done. I highly doubt it. Soy chorizo, the vegan meat alternative from Trader Joe's. Everyone knows it. It's just called soy chorizo. Comes in that big tube. I don't think I've ever bought it because it's made from textured soy protein, which is never on my short-listed ingredients to buy. It has won so many awards through the years that they have put it into their product Hall of Fame, which sounds really good. They inducted 5 new foods into this Hall of Fame. I guess Trader Joe's has their own Hall of Fame and their own things, but they did this apparently to kind of make room. There's the end of the music, so I didn't nearly make it.
You haven't made it through your first story.
No.
It's about your effort.
Anyway, they needed to make room in the best product category in their voting. So they moved it into the Hall of Fame, and so I guess it's good. It sort of sounds to me like they wanted to get the vegan product out of the taking up the spots in the category. So they just
retire. They needed to move it. Where did they move it?
This is according to Veg News, by the way. They informed me of this today with their article. Okay. They vote. They have a voting every year. People pick, what the best product is, and I guess it's always in that category. Maybe because it's like the most popular vegan food, so it always gets the vegan contingency to vote for it. I don't really know, but it's always in this category. So they moved it out of there because it takes up a spot in that category, basically. So they moved it into the Hall of Fame. So now it is no longer eligible for annual awards, but it's retired.
But not retired to eat. You can actually get it.
Now you're eating a Hall of Fame food when you eat it. So it's better.
There you go. I've had it a few times.
I remember. It looks good. It doesn't look like a bad thing.
Yeah.
You would. Yeah. The reason I don't get it, I'm always very excited about chorizo because I like Spanish chorizo. But Spanish chorizo is not really spicy. It has a little bit of smoked paprika, sometimes the spicy kind. Very different from Mexican chorizo, which is, spicy Mexican meat kind of stuff.
Oh, okay. All right. That's why I would get it. That's why you said I would get it. I thought you were implying that because you said you don't get it because of its soy.
Oh, right. No. Just
like,
the flavor.
You don't care about that stuff, which is maybe true, but
yeah. So anyway, that's that one. All right. So I'm gonna try to finish each item during the music now, which is my new idea.
There you go.
Fast food empire Slutty Vegan is now opening its first drive-through in Columbus, Georgia. Now that could be road trip worthy. Something just happened to my computer. I'm gonna shut it. It's out of power. Great. That's the sound machine. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the 7-Eleven Sounds Good sound machine. Went down early.
That's epic Friday fail there, man.
Yeah. Anyway, Columbus, Georgia. I don't know how far away that is, Doug, from the Charlotte, Asheville area, but we could road trip it to a drive-through and then just turn around and drive home. I don't know if it's a full store. I think it's just a drive-through outpost. So they'll do the Slutty Vegan thing. Closest we will get. Actually, no, I shouldn't say that. Atlanta's only 3 hours away or something. So we could always go to that and get the real Slutty Vegan. They have a New York location. Apparently, they are opening one in Washington D.C. as well, Doug. Your old stopping grounds near Rock Creek Park, perhaps. I don't know.
Perhaps.
I have not that much interest in this. I don't know why. I don't like the provocative, not the right word. I don't like the branding with these names. See, here's Steven saying with a name like that, Slutty Vegan could dominate in New Orleans. I don't know what that means, Steven, but you can elaborate if you would like. I don't know. I don't like. It's just not a nice thing. I don't know. I can't take the kids
I can't
there.
imagine like taking my family to Slutty Vegan.
Right. No, it's a turn and it's fine. Good branding by them. That's how you
or like
you
polarize. My 6-year-old chanting Slutty Vegan, Slutty Vegan. They wouldn't do that. So, or I wouldn't be thrilled about that.
Exactly. But it's fine. You reach an audience by polarizing, and they have.
It's 6 hours away from Charlotte, so I don't think it's worth the road trip.
Oh no, that's further than Atlanta. I'd rather we just go to the regular place.
Go to Atlanta, yeah.
Okay, and finally, CPG giant Unilever. We all know them. I don't know if it's Unilever or Unilever. They are the world's largest ice cream manufacturer, and they're now expanding their U.S. dairy-free ice cream offerings with a new range from Breyers and Talenti Gelato, which I have had before. The Breyers has already had plant-based flavors before. They've never had just pure non-dairy vanilla, and now they will. It's from oat milk, which seems to be popular choice in those kinds of things. And they already do have some others. They have chocolate chip, mint chocolate chip, vanilla, peanut butter swirl, cookies and cream. I don't think these are all almond milk, so they probably are not as tasty, would be my guess. But you can go get those Breyers. And then the Talenti is adding some new dairy free. I don't know what flavor I had before. I think it was strawberry, but they're adding now chocolate fudge, or they have chocolate fudge brownie, blueberry crumble gelato layers, caramel toffee crunch, and double cookie crunch. For my money, gelato much more interesting than ice cream. I really don't. Just not a big ice cream fan. But gelato I can kind of get into. I had some in Italy, in Milan, that was delicious. We found a little vegan spot, and it was amazing.
Yeah. I mean, there's enough. I mean, I wouldn't say there's enough. There should always be more, and it should dominate the space of non-dairy ice creams. That would be fantastic if it did. But it's nothing new to have a new non-dairy ice cream. Gelato feels new to me. You don't see that very often, so I support this. Love it.
Right. They, I think gelato, when gelato is vegan, it's like, well, this isn't the way to say it, but there's also sorbetto. And I think sorbetto is like basically vegan gelato.
Sorbetto. Look at you.
Exactly. You get the double T, you got to extend that consonant.
I like it. I call it sorbet.
That's fine too. I think that's French, actually, Doug. I don't think that's Southern.
Okay.
Anyway, I think sorbetto is typically more just fruit. Maybe there's sometimes still dairy in it, but I don't know. I think this Talenti stuff I've had before. I'm not sure. I should have done maybe more research, or maybe not. But what I had before from them was either called gelato or sorbetto, but it was vegan, and now they've got a bunch more, so that's exciting. I thought the statement that ice cream not that good would be more polarizing. You don't have any feelings about that, Doug?
I mean, I love non-dairy ice cream.
You do like ice cream.
Yeah, I mean, you know how I feel about sweets. Like I would rather have an extra plate of nachos than an ice cream bowl. But I mean, for a treat, going out with the kids,
after a meal, you're still in the mood of consuming, and I offer you either a Guinness let's just say alcoholic Guinness, or I offer you a Guinness float where they take some ice cream and pour the Guinness on there or whatever. And it's, assuming you like it. Like, do you want all that? Do you want the big dessert, or would you just like a nice drink to end the night?
I would much rather just have the straight up Guinness. Yeah,
exactly. I think ice cream is overrated, just as a category, not a good product.
A couple comments here. Mr. Jeffrey, going back to the Slutty Vegan stuff, Mr. Jeffrey says, I went and it was incredible, and every employee was thrilled to be there. I was so impressed. To be clear, I would definitely go there if there was one nearby, or if I was nearby, I would definitely go, because I would love to check it out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not against the brand at all, and if I were in New York or wherever they have it, Atlanta, I think, I would happily get it. It's just like not on my list because of the name. It just, I don't know. Same as her book, whatever the book was, something about bitch with an asterisk. I just don't. That just turns me off. I don't know. Look at me. I don't like bad language.
You're getting old, Matt. Steven says sorbet is more water based. Gelato tastes creamier somehow.
Yeah, I always thought sorbetto was like just pure fruit, but then I found out that it isn't. That you can definitely get it, and it's not vegan sometimes. So I don't
is
know.
sorbetto with an O different than sorbet?
Yeah, it has a T-O, 2 T's and an O. No, I think they're the same thing. It's just Italian name versus French/Southern.
Oh, yeah. Okay, got it.
I think that's my understanding. All right. So that's your weather report. Very short. Not a whole lot of new stuff today. Also, not a whole lot of, in general, just articles to talk about today. But I did find one that I am quite excited about from New York Times. Not a vegan-specific article, although definitely a pro-vegan article in many ways. It's called 10 Nutrition Myths Experts Wish Would Die. And they say, we surveyed some of these countries' leading authorities to reveal the truth about fat, dairy, soy, and more. So usually when you read these kind of articles, I don't tend to like them that much. I think they call out obvious myths that are not very good, and they oftentimes they have an anti-vegan tone, and they just go back to traditional nutrition advice, which is not usually that good. Or at least not that.
How do you rate that headline, Matt?
I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Passable.
Okay.
No typos. No obvious grammatical errors or anything. I don't wish would die. I mean, I don't know. It's okay. What do you think?
I think it sounds like about a million other articles already written in different mommy blogger space in nutrition blogger spaces. So, but yeah, it's a good article though.
Yeah, I don't know. Wish would die. How about say experts wish would go the way of the Atkins diet or something, a little nod to the nutrition world. Say go the way of something that's extinct. I don't actually know if Atkins is extinct.
Yeah, is Atkins extinct? I don't think so.
I think he died of a heart attack, and I thought everybody then realized the diet was a shit.
Did he really? I shouldn't laugh at that.
I think so. No, I mean it's ironic and maybe not funny, but yeah, I think people. I'm sure it's around still, but I do think that's kind of a red flag. All right. So anyway, let's get into this. But the introductory paragraph is one that made me excited right away. It says, soy milk can raise the risk of breast cancer. Fat-free foods are healthier than high-fat foods. Vegans and vegetarians are deficient in protein. Some false ideas about nutrition seem to linger in American culture like a terrible song stuck in your head. So right there, they're taking the side of vegans in many ways. Soy milk being a common vegan food, and of course they call it the protein myth. So let's just run through these. We don't need to get into their explanations necessarily of them, but let's just hit it. Myth number one: fresh fruit. I'm having trouble speaking today. Myth number one: fresh fruits and vegetables are always healthier than canned, frozen, or dried varieties. We've talked about this a little bit on our own recently, Doug, with frozen foods particularly being mentioned by us as potentially more healthful than fresh because you can pick them, you can freeze them at the peak of freshness, flash frozen, rather than having to pick them in advance so that they ripen on the truck or on the on the grocery store shelves rather than being still attached and able to become their best. So nothing wrong with frozen vegetables. As we said, we don't tend to use them all that much, but certainly you can. And they mentioned that you can save money, make sure there are always fruits and vegetables available at home. I don't know about dried varieties. That gets me a little bit because then suddenly you get caloric density issues when the water goes away. You can eat way more dried bananas, for example, than you could eat regular whole undried bananas. And then that could allow you to get a lot of sugar into your body. You're still getting the fiber and all that, so that's great. This is much better than just, drinking fruit juice or something. But I don't know about dried, but they don't go in specifically to that. So
yeah, or canned even. I mean, because there's a difference between I think canned vegetables and canned fruit, because oftentimes the fruit is in some sort of concentrate. But yeah, I mean, I think it's important to call out that canned and dried and frozen doesn't always equal inferior.
Right. They do mention that canned, dried, and they say frozen varieties can contain sneaky ingredients like added sugars, fats, and sodium. And that's true, right? The canned often has more sodium in it, including even beans have higher sodium usually in cans, unless you specifically get the non-sodium varieties. And like you said, when you get frozen, sometimes you get, or canned fruit, you get added sugar. So you'd have to watch out for that. But I don't know. I feel like frozen is largely exempt from that warning. Like you don't really add that stuff when you freeze something. So
Yeah.
there you go. All right, myth number 2, all fat is bad. This is, I don't know. I mean, I think this one already did die. Maybe not. Maybe people still think all fat is bad, and they look at the fat number on their thing and, decide whether the food is good or bad based on that. Certainly fat has gone through its period where it was kind of vilified, but I think it has come back a lot, and I think the mainstream people understand that. So simply replacing fat with carbohydrates or sugar, that was a craze in the 80s, 90s, whatever. That's not a good thing. So yeah, fat a good thing in general, as long as it's from a fairly whole or clean source. I tend to try to avoid having high carbohydrate and high fat meals at the same time. It happens fairly often, but I tend to think of my healthiest meals as those that, the protein is to me kind of neutral. Like I like having, all my food just sort of has some in there. But I like it to be either a carbohydrate meal or a fat meal. Those two energy sources for your body. We're not that great at dealing with both at once. So tending to separate those meal to meal, I think, is a good thing. So like vegetables with oil is a good thing. You don't necessarily need to add a bunch of rice to it, etc.
I don't know. I've never really thought about it that way.
No?
No.
Yeah, Ray Cronise he pointed out in a bigger sense that diets that work well over long term tend to focus on one or the other. They have their protein, they have their greens and their vegetables, but then you've got to pick between fat. In the vegan diet, the whole food plant-based has typically been the low fat type of diet. Paleo was high fat, low carb. Both of these tend to create decent health results over longer periods. But when you start mixing those two and your diet's high in both of those energy sources, then you kind of get into trouble.
But does it matter if it's mixed? Is it any better to mix meal to meal versus, or not mix meal to meal than it is within the meal?
I think so. I think your body can use its energy sources typically, between meals, not entirely, but to some extent. So I think it is a good thing. Anyway, just my opinion. I have no research based on that. There's a little bit like Ray's stuff, but not that much.
I'm trying to apply this method to tacos, and I'm struggling a little bit. So
you just gotta make low-fat tacos. Don't put a lot of fat on there. They're gonna have the carbohydrates in them for sure.
Sure.
I'm not saying have none. Hey, somebody's someone is linking us to saturated fat in diet showing link to Alzheimer's and dementia. Yeah, I don't know if their recommendation specifically goes into saturated fat, but that's one you should kind of keep an eye on. Saturated fat content. It's controversial for sure. Not everyone says that saturated fat is bad, but largely they do. And I think the American Heart Association says it's not good for heart health. All right, Whole Health Experience adds a useful tidbit here. I learned that carbs open your cells and the fat basically comes along for the ride, so it stores fat more quickly. Yeah, that's that sort of logic is, I think, behind Ray's thing. So you gotta make some low-fat tacos, Doug.
Okay.
All right, number 3. Calories in, calories out is the most important factor for long-term weight gain. Of course, this is myth number 3. So they're saying that is not true. Their point is that in the shortest term, if you're trying to lose weight, or if you're not trying to gain weight, or you are trying to gain weight, I guess, that factor matters. But over the longer term, what matters much more, the research suggests, is the actual food choices you're making, rather than sheer amount of calories in and out, which is very hard to get your head around. I don't know why. Forever I have learned that idea. We all did. Calories in, calories out. How much you're burning versus how much you're taking in, and that's going to determine. There's no getting around it. But it turned out there is. It's not that simple. So I think that's a good one.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, like you said, we've been told that our whole lives, and it makes sense. Like, it makes logical sense, right? Calories in, calories out.
Right.
So, but just kind of driving home the focus on the food quality over quantity.
Dale Stevens asks, I missed number 2. What was it? I wouldn't do this for just anybody. Most people you got to keep up, but Dale Stevens is a loyal, regular listener. She's always here. So I'm happy to go repeat number 2, which was all fat is bad. That's the myth, and meaning it's not. Okay, on to number 4. People with type 2 diabetes shouldn't eat fruit. Thank goodness this myth is being debunked here, or at least they're trying to promote the idea that it needs to die, because fruit is one of the most vilified foods among certain internet communities, and there is, from what I can tell, no good reason for that whatsoever. I will sort of buy the argument that modern fruit is not the same as the fruit that we've evolved to eat. It's been whatever selectively cultivated or whatever, and it's way sugary or much more like a candy than nature's fruit is meant to be. Fine, I can agree with that, and maybe we can make our fruit choices accordingly. Not that easy to do so, but definitely eat the fiber. Eat. You can't eat the apple core, but you can eat a lot of the apple. You can eat the skins. All these things that people don't. That it's easy to imagine just carving away, or worse of all, just eating the juice of the fruit. That's not good. Anyway, but when it comes to diabetes, people, I still wouldn't really know much to recommend otherwise. But Robbie and Cyrus from Mastering Diabetes, I know they're big fruit fans. Despite talking to a diabetes audience, Gregor's got some interesting research, or he at least cites interesting research about the people who drank sugar water versus people who drank sugar water plus whole blackberries, and the people who ate the blackberries along with their sugar water, meaning more total sugar load. Their blood sugar spiked less than those who drank pure sugar water. So the fruit, even though it's adding sugar, actually serves to blunt the sugar spike. And that, of course, is because of the fiber and the other things that come along with it. So this is the idea behind that, and I think wish this one got out there a lot more.
Yeah, nothing to add here. I agree.
Now, number 5. This is going to be controversial for us, Doug, and I'll let you go first. Myth number 5: plant milk is healthier than dairy milk. That's a myth. So they're saying that's not true.
That's right. They're saying there's a perception that plant-based milks, such as those made from oats, almonds, rice, and hemp, are more nutritious, but that's simply not true, says the professor Kathleen Mergen. So basically what they're saying here is that when you look at, mostly they talk about protein. If you're looking at cow's milk, protein has 8 grams per cup, whereas almond milk typically has 1 to 2, and oat milk has 2 to 3. And then they also talk about how a lot of plant milks have added sugars and sodium and things that contribute to poor health. We've talked about that before. We've talked about how plant milks are, often not like health foods, right? Sometimes they do have a lot of added sugar, especially your original versions or your vanilla versions or things like that just are pumped with sugar. But what I think that is probably missing here is the downsides of drinking cow's milk, right?
Yes.
So if you're just looking at the back of the nutrition labels, yeah, cow's milk probably has more protein and less sugar. But what about the health or the health benefits of not drinking the cow's milk, I guess is the thing. So, I mean, what is more of a takeaway for me from this, and probably something we should continue to say, at least as something that I believe, is that plant milk shouldn't be something you're just like throwing back all the time. Like, it's not a health food. All right. Most of them aren't. And so, how you use them is probably dependent on how impactful they will be, or what kind of impact they'd have on your health. Is that fair?
Yeah. Yep. I think that you hit the big point is the one that they did not consider the downsides of dairy that it has by virtue of coming from a cow, being an animal product, being high in saturated fat, depending which kind you pick, has some sugar with it, right? It's not added sugar, but it is sugar. And it can be as much as the plant milks, even the ones that are sweetened plant milks. So it is certainly not without problems. And they don't even go in, of course, and I don't expect them to go into potential cancer risks of dairy consumption, which right. I think are certainly not accepted by the mainstream. But that to me is the huge one that's why I would stay away typically from dairy, aside from the ethical issues. And they say consider protein, as if like there's lots of examples like this. There aren't many examples like that. Protein is like the thing that you get from milk that makes it quote unquote more nutritious than plant milk. Right. Yes, there's also calcium and there's also vitamin D, which is usually fortified with the vitamin D, which you can do that, and they do that in plant milks as well. So I just don't see a lot of health benefits in milk other than protein. And like Bianca says here in the comments, there's a decent amount of protein in soy milk. And you can also choose the unsweetened varieties of those things if you want. Not that everyone does, I get that. But you can get them with very little sugar, with no added sugar and very little period. So I'm just not really buying this one. I know there are extra things in regular milk, or sorry, added to plant milk, gums and carrageenans and things like that.
Right.
And yeah, and like you said, you don't. I don't think it's meant for consuming a whole lot of, and I wouldn't. So
Yeah. You know, and you know, different milks, of course, have different, depending on where they're coming from, have different nutrition profiles, right? Nutrient profiles. So, like pea, I think, what is it? What's the pea milk that's popular? Ripple.
yes, okay.
We were concerned about Eliza's protein at one point, and so she was drinking that, and it had like 9 grams. I don't know how much, but it had a lot of protein in it, and a lot of kind of some good stuff, and very little sugar. Yeah, I mean, so you just have to like, you can't judge all plant milks the same, I think, and again, like, who's not very many people are drinking them by the glass, you know, assuming that it's a health food.
Yeah, but I guess I'm okay with them. Like, I think they're speaking to the person who picks up some Oatly in the store and they put that in their coffee every morning instead of the regular milk, and they assume they are making this great health decision. I think in many ways, a lot of things, problems that are associated with dairy, like asthmas and I think some skin reactions. I mean, stuff like that might actually clear up when you do that. Otherwise, I'm not saying it's just not a huge health choice you're making. So I think that's the point. It's not just this automatic health food. But I think if you're mindful about it, I certainly think it is better than cow's milk.
Yeah.
All right. Myth number 6.
This is my favorite.
I know, and this would be Rachel's not favorite. Myth number 6: white potatoes are bad for you. So I'm getting so confused with these myths here. I think I'm confusing people. That's the myth. The truth, according to New York Times, is that the white potatoes are not bad for you. We've made a running joke on the show, which we kind of got from our friend Sid Garza-Hillman. At least he was the first one to make it. That because it's white, suddenly we start thinking it's like white flour or white rice, and we just assume it's this refined carbohydrate, as if there's some. And I guess there's a sweet potato version, which is not white, but it has nothing to do with being refined. It's just white. It's just how it is. And they've been vilified, they say, for their high glycemic index. However, they can actually be very beneficial for your health. They're rich in a lot of things, especially when consumed with the skin. And they're also inexpensive, found year round, so etc. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I do see some health people who do kind of know health saying to take it easy with the potatoes. I don't know. You also see it being the potato diet is a diet for weight loss. Eat just potatoes for 2 weeks, and it's pretty hard not to lose weight. And you get some satiety from potatoes compared to other foods. So it's I don't know. It's to me, treat it almost like any other, whole food. Maybe some little bit of caution not to eat too much of it if you're particularly worried about that. But I certainly don't think twice when I'm eating a white potato.
Yeah, I don't either. I did happen to notice, though, they recommend approved methods include roasting, baking, boiling, and air frying. I didn't see anything about totting, turning them into tater tots. So I need to check the sources here.
Yes, well, actually, I mean, you make a good point here, Doug, that perhaps part of the bad reputation potatoes have, I don't think this is the whole thing, but people eat French fries, and I think I've done this in my younger days when I was just getting into healthy eating. Eat some French fries, and you say, well, it's potatoes. It's better than chips, which are just, pure, so much more fat per potato. And it's a potato, right? The inside of that fry isn't fried. It's just a potato in there. But this would violate my be careful with fats and carbohydrates together in the same meal. They're always going to be together in the same meal, but in large amounts with both. So that would violate that one. But I think that's a good point. I think there are a lot of people who just assume those potato foods are not so bad because they're potatoes. And potato happens to be very popular in snack foods that are not healthy for you.
One more question before we move on from this. Do you ever peel your vegetables? Like, obviously some vegetables you have to, but like do you peel your potatoes or carrots or?
I don't have a great answer for this. I had read a long time ago that you don't need to peel your carrots if they're organic. And for a long time I didn't. Now I just like my food to be a little bit nicer, so I just peel them. Maybe I don't think potatoes or carrot skin holds any extra nutrition over the rest of the carrot. But the dirt, you could argue that the dirt has some nutrition in there, right? That used to be our B12 source before the soil was destroyed. So, well, I guess you can count animals too being people's B12 source. But if not for soil being destroyed, vegans could get their B12 from dirty produce. That's my point.
Right.
Anyway,
Potatoes.
so I don't potatoes. You know what? For a while I didn't. Every recipe I look at says peel your potatoes and then wash them. And I just wonder if there's something, I should Google it, but I always peel potatoes. I feel like maybe there's some sort of dirt they trap it. You just can't get off by washing.
Or is it a texture? If the recipe's calling for it, you think maybe it was a texture thing, right?
I really don't know. There are some instances where it wouldn't make any difference, and they still say to peel it. So I assumed that it's, you know how like you have a brush that people have a brush that they use to wash the potatoes with?
Yeah.
Like that has its own tool. That's different than a carrot. That to me means that there are more pockets and things where dirt, potentially bacteria, could hide. Yeah. Often when I make potatoes, I'm boiling them in water for a long time. So I assume that, most of that stuff will be taken care of by boiling water. But plus, it gets diluted. It even cleans the potatoes, the very fact of boiling them. So I don't know. But I still tend to do it. I don't know. We need a consensus. I'd like to know what people think about that. Bianca doesn't because she's lazy, which is not very useful for us. But if anyone has a health reason why they peel or don't peel, I'd love to hear it.
I don't peel. It's probably 50% being lazy and 50% because I've heard many times, like they mentioned here, that there's like a lot of good nutrients and health benefits to eating the skin. So we never peel. I mean, I don't know. And I actually kind of like the texture of the skin too.
Yeah.
Most of the time. And so, yeah, I'm a never peeler.
Okay. Well, WikiHow has a 10-step process to decide whether or not to peel your potatoes. It seems like a lengthy process.
Okay.
More quickly, I'm just Googling and not even clicking links here, but lovepotatoes.co.uk says, just give them a good rinse to remove any dirt and cut out any blemishes you see. Some people prefer to peel before boiling, but we would recommend you leave the skins on. This ensures that the nutrients and flavors are not lost during cooking, and you get all those lovely vitamins too.
Perfect. There you go.
Okay. And Suzanne Rosenkilde says, I peel during winter, but not fresh summer potatoes. Don't have a good reason for that choice. I can understand that. I think if I have a fresh thing and I'm getting it from the farmer's market or the garden, I care much less about the dirt that's on it than I do when it comes from the grocery store. So I just feel like that dirt's almost wholesome in some weird way. All right. Let's see. Stephen also lazy like Bianca. Good. Okay. This one is the least interesting to me of the myths. Maybe you, Doug, having younger children, this is more of interest. Myth number 7, you should never feed peanut products to your children within their first few years of life. And so I guess the idea here is that there's a peanut allergy risk. It's rare, obviously, but you wouldn't have any way of knowing it in a baby. And I guess if something's bad going to happen with a peanut allergy, you'd rather it happen to an adult who finds out that they have peanut allergy than a baby. So that's the idea. They bust the myth and they say you can start around 4 to 6 months as long as your baby doesn't have severe eczema or known food allergy. And they don't really explain too much in the logic here. So I don't understand much about this one. Any thoughts here, Doug?
No, I've never actually heard the multiple year thing. First few years of life and from those allergies. I thought it was just, you got to be mindful. Introduce one at a time so you know exactly what it is if something goes wrong. So I don't know.
Okay, so here, this says experts told new parents that the best way to prevent them from developing food allergies was to avoid feeding them common allergenic foods like peanuts or eggs during their first few years of life. But now allergy experts say it's better to introduce them early on. So that makes sense to me, that part, that you can't just shelter them and expect that that's going to prevent the allergy. I think you'd want exposure in small amounts so that they can learn to deal with it.
Right.
Not that logic always holds or that you should risk a child's life, according to that logic. But apparently that's what the nutritionists are saying to do, or allergy experts are saying.
Matt, I just messed up. I accidentally exited the article, and now I've hit my limit. So I'm relying on you to finish this out for me.
I got it. All right, we're at 46 minutes, so we're going to wrap up after this article. Meaning we won't get to my little olive oil thing, which I was kind kind of excited to talk about. We'll save that for Monday on the topic of fat being bad. I figured that'd be a nice supplement since it was a popular topic yesterday. So we'll talk some olive oil on Monday. Not talk to olive oil. We'll talk about olive oil on Monday. Myth number 8: the protein in plants is incomplete. So this one caught my eye because I thought, I know combining proteins isn't important during a meal. That is a huge myth, admitted even by the author who first wrote that in the, I think, early 80s or late 70s. So it's not that. So anyway, I understood that part, that we don't need to combine because our body pulls throughout the day, and just getting the different proteins through the day is enough. Their point here is that plant proteins are not that plants are not completely missing some amino acids. I guess I should clarify. A complete protein is one that contains all 9 essential amino acids, the ones that your body does not produce. So a complete protein has all of them. So they're kind of going with the technical definitions here and saying, but in reality, all plant-based foods contain all 20 amino acids, including all 9 essential amino acids. The difference is that the proportion isn't as ideal as the proportion of amino acids in animal-based foods. So they're kind of saying, like, if you go by the strict definition, they technically are complete proteins because they all contain all of the amino acids. But if they don't contain enough of them to be nearly optimal, I'm not saying plants as a whole don't, but if most plants on their own don't contain enough, I think we can still consider that incomplete on its own. Soy, I know, is a prominent exception, that it is complete. So I'm not saying you can't get complete protein from plant foods. And obviously, like I said, you don't need to worry about combining this stuff anyway, because if you're eating a variety and you eat it throughout the day, your body will pull it. You're fine. It's not something to worry about. But it just seems like a weird way to bust a myth, to sort of resort to the definition and say, in the most technical sense, these are incomplete. But practically speaking, they still kind of are. You follow
that is unusual. I mean, I think the myth is that you need to worry about it, right? You need to worry about plant proteins being incomplete.
Yes.
And when in reality, you don't need to worry about it, right? If you're eating a variety of different protein sources, plant protein sources, then you're going to get everything you need. And so I guess that's the myth. They just kind of worded it wrong or oddly.
Right. So Dale says, I think they have all the amino acids, which is what protein is. Right. Or right? Question mark? Right? Like Anchorman?
Right.
And so just to clarify in case, because I think I wasn't that clear in explaining it. I guess my point is, if you ate only one plant all the time, based on this New York Times advice, you might think, well, plant protein is actually complete. And all plants have all the essential amino acids. So I can eat only broccoli, and I'm just picking that randomly. I don't know what the amino acid profile is. But if you eat just one vegetable, your protein is going to be off, right? Unless that vegetable is soybeans, you're not going to have all the correct amount of the amino acids or the ideal amount of all the amino acids. Mm-hmm. You'll have an unbalanced amino acid profile. Whereas if you ate one animal food only, you'd be fine. Because I think most of those animal foods are going to provide you, meat specifically, going to provide all those amino acids. So with plants, you do need to make sure you get this mix over time throughout the day, whatever. With animals, you don't. So I don't know. To me, that's the important point.
I like it. Good. Thumbs up.
You don't have the article in front. You're like a lame duck.
I don't. I'm a linkless man wandering through the.
All right. Steven says, all this time I didn't realize soy is a complete protein source. I hope I am saying that right. But I would hate to mislead people. Yeah. According to ScienceDirect.com, when I Google, that is true. Okay, moving on to number 9. Listen carefully, Doug. I know you don't have it in front of you. Eating soy-based foods can increase the risk of breast cancer. This one is the one I'm most happy to see on this list. We have a lengthy article on it on No Meat Athlete. I think it's nomeatathlete.com/soy. And the question is soy safe? Is it actually linked to these cancers like so much, of the internet rhetoric would tell you it is? And they're here to tell you that no, it is. Soy does not increase the risk of breast cancer as so many assume. And in fact, there are some associations that would suggest that perhaps it actually prevents these, this and other cancers. And that's the great thing. I mean, it's so healthy, soy as a food, and I hate that people think of it as a unhealthy food.
I love soy.
Yeah,
in many forms.
In all forms.
and all
including soy chorizo from Trader Joe's.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I think soy. There's so many myths about soy, and both and people are afraid to eat too much soy. But I'm a soy boy.
Okay. This, by the way, just in case, this is not like vegan quack docs saying, not that all vegan docs are quacks, but this is not some health the guru kind of guy. This is Dr. Frank B. Hu. We've talked about him before, professor and the chair of the Department of Nutrition at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. I recall that a lot of the sources or a lot of the links we used for that No Meat Athlete article actually came from Harvard Medical or whatever health website. So this is not niche, internet theory that soy is actually good. It's mainstream organizations are behind it.
Yep. Let's see. A Plant-Based Space points out that it's extremely important that you eat organic soy,
which is also the way to get non-GMO soy. If you get organic, It implies non-GMO, and that is important. Mm-hmm. So is Plant-Based Space saying that it's important for your health? Well, I don't know. What's a monocrop? I'm not up on farming terminology.
I don't know.
Don't know. Okay. Good. All right. Well, Plant-Based Space, you can clarify that if you'd like. I think
Plant-Based Space is the one who likes crop every year. And a similar.
Yeah, well, I knew that. I think it's a crop, right? They don't rotate it. They just keep producing it there. Is that right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
But why does that mean you need to get organic? I don't really know. Oh, maybe because then if you do that, I don't know. Then they're going to use more pesticides.
Maybe
I have no idea. Okay. Yeah, please do. Okay. Let's see. Next one, number 10, last one. Fundamental nutrition advice keeps changing a lot. So that is definitely the conversation on the internet, I think, is that you can't trust anyone. What's true 1 year about nutrition suddenly is a complete false information 5 years later. And so the fundamentals keep on changing. They say, not really, not so. If you go back to the 1950s, the first dietary recommendations for prevention of obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and the like advise balancing calories and minimizing foods high in saturated fat, salt, and sugar. The current U.S. dietary guidelines urge the same. That's Dr. Marion Nestle, a professor emerita of nutrition, food studies, and public health at NYU. And then she goes on to mention Michael Pollan and his good advice: eat food, not too much, mostly plants. That advice worked 70 years ago, and it still does today, she says.
I love this one. This is my favorite one. Because I think that there is this, or I know that there's this perception that nutrition advice is constantly changing, and it's because diets come and go, right? Fad diets come,
marketing.
The way people are talking about nutrition changes from year to year, and what's in vogue changes all the time. But the like core advice, right? And this kind of goes back to the flexitarian stuff and the Mediterranean diet and everything we've been talking about over the last several months. The core advice is very simple, and if you just follow that, all the healthiest diets tend to kind of fall into that advice for the most part, aside from some of the carnivore diets and stuff like that. But I wouldn't call those the healthiest diets. But many of these popular fad diets are just versions of the same thing, and it's just kind of confusing people about as they talk more about protein or fat or carbs or whatever.
Yeah, I think for the most part, I agree with that. And I would agree that like what changes is not so much the nutrition advice or the fundamental nutrition advice. It's that people want the next shiny object when they've tried something and they've probably failed at it. They've probably given up on actually following the guidelines of that diet. And then just in time, another one comes up and they go to that. And gradually, nutrition advice appears to shift over the years. But in fact, it's just our short attention spans or our inability to commit to something and stick to it. However, I do think because largely because money is involved and the power of some of these groups, like, I don't know, like to me, what our parents learned and kind of taught us was that meat and milk, very important to a backbone of a healthy diet, square meal.
That's true. That's a good point.
And nowadays, like, I don't believe any of that at all. And I don't know if the U.S. dietary guidelines have changed that much. Like, and their example here of in the 50s, it was this, now they're the same. That doesn't mean it doesn't change. That just means it has come full circle, right? It could have changed. And I think it did change during that time. So I'm not entirely in agreement here, and I think it is changing. Now, I think if you could cut out the money part of this and the lobbies and all that, perhaps what some people have known all along is this, right? Eat food, not too much, mostly plants. But that's not the messaging that has come from the government and some other, powerful, trusted nutrition bodies.
That's a great point. But I think what that's talking about, maybe, I mean, the whole milk thing when we were growing up, and meat too, I guess. But like, that's specific. That's a specific thing, right? Like, milk is good for your bones, good for your body. We were taught that. But like, the general advice about, you should eat your vegetables, you should not drink too much soda and eat too much sugar, like that kind of stuff hasn't really changed, right? There's some elements of it, I guess, around milk or meat, has adapted and changed and grown. We certainly know way more about the vegan diet than we did in the 50s and the benefits of a plant-based diet. But, saturated fat, never been a good thing, I don't think. Too much sugar, never been a good thing.
Yeah, you're right. If you go read those Michael Pollan books, the simplest one, by the way, is called Food Rules. It's just a distillation of Omnivore's Dilemma was like 500 pages. And then out came, I'm blanking on he had one in between that was like 100 pages or 150, and it was pretty dense still, but a good read, which I'll look at it while I'm doing this. And then he, a couple years later, put out Food Rules, which is literally like, one sentence per page or two sentences per page of 100 different rules. So that one's a great just tips. But if you read that, you kind of nod along saying, yeah, this makes total sense. Like, this is what my grandparents believed. Of course, I don't want to have food with more than 5 ingredients on the label. Or of course, I want to cook my own food rather than letting someone else cook it for me. It all makes sense. So I do think, like, it's true that the nutrition fundamentals have not changed. But as far as how do we define what's fundamental nutrition advice, which is what they use in the myth here, in the wording, I don't know. It does, to me, whatever you're calling the fundamental advice, to me appears that it does keep changing.
Yeah. Okay.
But, the actual truth, fundamental nutrition truth, of course, that doesn't change, right? Truth doesn't usually change.
Depends on who you ask, but yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. I appreciate the pushback there.
All right. Well, we're at an hour. We already moved quickly past that 45-minute kick we were on after one episode. But we are intending to keep these shorter, definitely shorter than an hour, probably more like 45 minutes. Leave the people wanting more. That's what I intend to do. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's all. That's it. We're done. It's weekend time. We'll be back on Monday. This is not a 3-day weekend or anything like that. Unfortunately, just regular old weekend. Any big plans for you, Doug? Any skiing or anything like that?
No, this is going to be a low-key weekend. Actually, I think we're going to try ice skating this weekend, so that'll be fun.
Oh, nice.
Go down to Tryon and do that.
You can come to Charlotte and do it.
I could come to Charlotte if you'll host me. You keep inviting me on the podcast, but never actually reaching out. So I'm gonna maybe in the newsletter we can include my invitation in the newsletter. No, but yeah. How about you? Anything fun?
I have about 8 soccer games to go to that are my kids, and that includes us turning down about 4 soccer games from these different leagues and things that they're in that we just can't do. It's like the perfect storm this weekend. It has all come together, and all the teams are playing multiple games, and it's just literally doing nothing but watching soccer games, indoor, outdoor, whatever you want. I'm watching it.
Wow. Okay. Well, good luck to your kids. Good luck to you to get through all those games.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. And I will close my eyes tonight, and I will basically wake up, and it'll be Monday morning, and I didn't do anything on my weekend except for go to games, and I'll be back to the grind.
Sounds refreshing. Sounds great. maybe that's why I never get the invite, because you're always just at soccer games.
I mean, that is the actual reason. We just have zero time to do anything. Okay, that's it. We will talk to everyone later. Thanks for coming. Check out the podcast. If you don't listen to it, subscribe to it wherever you get your podcasts. Plant-Based Morning Show. Follow us on Instagram, Plant-Based Morning Show, 11 a.m. Eastern. We didn't do a giveaway this week. We were going to. We'll do that next week.
Yes. All right.
Okay. Goodbye.
Yep. Bye.